Hello and welcome. Today, I want to talk about something that many security leaders and executives are sensing intuitively, even if the data feels mixed or confusing. And it's this: the feeling that cyber risk is not flattening, that somehow it is accelerating, particularly as we move into the second and third quarters of this year. This is not because of one dramatic breach or a new piece of malware or one headline vulnerability. It's because multiple risk forces are converging at the same time, and they're doing so in a way that compresses timelines and increases the impact. In this episode, I'm going to explain what is happening, why it matters for leadership, and most importantly, what CISOs and executive boards should be doing right now to reduce the damage when incidents occur. So, what is actually changing in the risk landscape? I want to talk about this because we're hearing it in the news and you're getting different indicators, and that's why it kind of feels like it, but let's really dive into it. Let us start with what is changing because this is where the confusion comes in. Many organizations still look at cyber risk through the lens of attack counts or high profile incidents. When those numbers fluctuate or they appear to level off, it ceases to feel like an urgency. But that's the wrong signal to watch. What has changed is not the number of attacks. What has changed is how fast attacks move, how they enter organizations, and how quickly they turn into real financial and operational damage. Attackers are no longer relying primarily on breaking through technical defenses. They are using stolen credentials, compromised vendors, trusted software updates, and legitimate access paths. This allows them to move quietly and quickly, and in many cases, organizations don't even realize that they're compromised until the data has already been taken or operations have already been disrupted. This is why risk is accelerating even when some surface level metrics appear stable. The time between the initial access and the business impact has shrunken dramatically. Why does this matter to executives and boards? Let me tell you. For leadership, this shift has profound implications. In the past, organizations often had weeks or months between an initial compromise and a serious outcome. That window allowed time to discover the issue, investigate, and respond before major damage occurred. But that window is closing. Today, incidents escalate faster. Data is taken earlier. Extortion happens sooner. Business disruption occurs before organizations fully understand what has even happened. This means that preparedness, speed, and containment matter more than ever. Organizations that assume prevention alone will protect them are the ones that experience the most severe outcomes. So now, how will this risk show up in your organization? So let's make this real. For many organizations, the first sign of trouble will not be malware alert or a system failure. It will be a notification that sensitive data has been accessed. It will be a vendor reporting suspicious activity. It will be an extortion message referencing internal information that should have never been exposed. In other cases, it will be a sudden operational disruption tied to a trusted system or service, something that everyone assumed was safe and will turn out to be the entry point. When this happens, organizations often realize that the blast radius is larger than expected. Multiple systems are involved. Third parties are affected. Legal and regulatory obligations trigger quickly. Costs mount even if systems are never encrypted. This is why executives increasingly report that cyber incidents feel more chaotic and more expensive, even when ransomware payments themselves are lower. The most important shift that I want you to take. Given the reality, the most important thing leaders can do is this: stop treating cyber risk as a problem of prevention alone and start treating it as a problem of impact management. This does not mean abandoning prevention. It means recognizing that attacks will get in and that organizations' success will be determined by how fast it detects, contains, and recovers. This mindset change is foundational. Everything else flows from this. What CISOs should be doing right now. So let's talk specifically about what you as a CISO should be doing immediately. Okay, first, assume that you will be compromised and test response speed. Security leaders should explicitly assume that attackers will gain access through credentials or trusted relationship. So the question is not if, but when. Organizations should run realistic response exercises that assume credential abuse or third-party access, not exotic malware. These exercises should measure how long it takes to detect abnormal activity, how quickly access can be revoked, and how effective the organization can limit damage once the intrusion is discovered. Speed matters. Every hour saves and reduces cost, disruption, and reputational harm. Second, put identity at the center of security strategy. Identity systems are now the primary control plane for modern attacks. This means privileged access, service accounts, application tokens, and vendor credentials deserve the highest level of scrutiny. CISOs should focus on reducing standing privileges, enforcing strong authentication everywhere it matters, and monitoring identity activity continuously. If an organization cannot quickly see when credentials are being misused, it cannot stop attackers before the damage occurs. Third, treat third-party exposure as an operational risk, not a piece of paperwork. Vendor risk management can no longer be a compliance exercise. It must be tied directly to business impact. Security leaders should identify which vendors have access to critical systems or sensitive data, and then understand what would happen if those vendors were compromised. For the most critical relationships, there should be clear plans for how access would be revoked, how operations would continue, and how downstream impacts would be assessed. The goal is not perfection, the goal is readiness. Fourth, prepare for extortion without encryption. Many organizations still prepare primarily for ransomware that locks the systems, and that is no longer enough. Extortion today often involves stolen data, regulatory pressure, reputational threats without encryption. These incidents require rapid legal communication and executive decision-making. CISOs should ensure that their organizations have tested processes for handling data exposure, including cooperation with legal counsel, public relations, regulators, and insurers. These costs now represent a significant portion of the total loss. Fifth, align security priorities to business interruption risk. Not all systems are equal. Some outages cause inconvenience while others stop revenue, disrupt safety, or trigger regulatory actions. Security leaders should work closely with business executives to identify which systems matter the most and ensure that those systems receive enhanced monitoring, enhanced access controls, and recovery capabilities. This alignment ensures that security investments reduce the risk that actually matters to the organization. While what boards should be doing right now, they should be playing a critical role in minimizing impact but only if they ask the right questions. Shift oversight from incident counts to impact readiness, and boards should stop asking only how many incidents occurred and instead should start asking how quickly the organization can detect and contain an incident. The most important questions are about speed, visibility, and resilience. For example, if a trusted vendor account were misused tomorrow, how long would it take to know, and how quickly could the damage be limited? You need to demand clarity on third-party concentration risk. Boards should require clear visibility into which external partners pose the greatest operational risk. This does not mean reviewing every vendor. It means understanding where exposure is concentrated and whether the organization is prepared for failure in those relationships. You need to engage earlier in the year, not after losses occur. Cyber losses are increasingly clustering earlier in the year. Boards should ensure that cyber risk discussions happen proactively, especially during periods of business change such as system upgrades and vendor transitions. Waiting for a post-incident briefing is too late. Support investment in response, not just prevention. And finally, boards must support investment in detection, response, and recovery capabilities. Tools that promise fewer alerts are less valuable than capabilities that reduce downtime and speed recovery. This includes logging, monitoring, and response planning, and external expertise. These investments directly reduce financial and operational impact. So, why acting now matters? The reason is acting now, not later. It's all about timing. Risk is accelerating because of multiple attack pathways that are maturing at the same time, and attackers are moving faster than organizations can adapt. Losses are being pulled forward into the second and third quarters of the year, and organizations that act now can still change those outcomes. Organizations that delay will experience more severe incidents, not because they are worse, but because they are slower. Preparedness is the difference between disruption and disaster. So let me bring this to a close and just summarize this for you. Cyber risk is accelerating, not because attackers are being more creative, but because they are faster, more opportunistic, and better at exploiting trust. The leaders who minimize impact will be the ones who assume compromise. They'll be the ones who prioritize identity and third-party exposure, that prepare for extortion, and focus relentlessly on speed of response. This is not about fear. This is about realism. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.